This is Melanie from polkadotsandpixiedust.com, and today we are sharing all about our day in Juneau during our 7-night Disney cruise to Alaska. Our day started very early at Cabanas because we had an excursion that required us to meet at 7:30 in the morning. I am not a fan of the scrambled eggs in Cabanas, so I got lunch meats for my protein and then headed over to Cove Cafe for some coffee. When you book through Disney, your Navigator app will tell you when and where to meet for your excursion. We met in O'Gill's Pub and were given a number for our group. We had booked the Rainforest Trails and Whales tour for the day in Juneau and were brought out to a bus where we met our guide and got settled in. You will always need your Key to the World card and a photo ID to get on and off the ship, so make sure you have that with you. We were happy to see that this was a smaller group, as large group tours are not really our thing. We met our guide Ben, who gave us some history all about the area and more information about the tour. He gave us recommendations for finding local businesses in town and a few recommendations for lunch later on. The drive was about 20 minutes to get outside of the city, and we loved learning some of the history about the city itself, as well as the surrounding areas and the people who live there. When we arrived at the Rainforest, we were split into two groups, and we were given a safety briefing about bears in the area. We were told that yes, there could potentially be bears in the area, though they had never seen any themselves, but also that they had bear spray and were properly trained to use it. Luckily, we didn't see any bears on our trail, just some birds and some squirrels. The Rainforest Trail we were on is a learning trail for school kids in the area, so it's a very hands-on forest that you're allowed to touch the plants, and on a few occasions, only when directed by our guide of course, we were even allowed to try eating a few of them that were edible. This is general knowledge that children in Alaska are taught, and it was really cool to see how much they learn about survival and nature from their studies. Juneau is a temperate rainforest, which means it rains a lot. On average, around 240-ish days per year, which means everything is very green and very lush. It's an old-growth rainforest, and so it's really interesting to see how the rainforest basically replenishes itself. It's like it almost can't stop growing. Our guide was super knowledgeable about the plants and wildlife in the area. She had actually come to Alaska to study the whales, but her background was in environmental science, so she was great at explaining more about the plants and the animals that make up the rainforest here. The hike was generally pretty easy. There are a few inclines and declines, but the trail is not paved, so just make sure that you wear proper shoes if you're planning to go on a hike in the rainforest while you're in Alaska. This forest had so many interesting trees, and we learned how to tell them all apart. Then we were brought to a rocky beach where we had a small time to explore on our own. We learned about some of the rocks present on the beach and why they were meaningful. The scenery around the beach was just beautiful, and we loved having a few minutes to just soak it all in. We love that this tour was so hands-on, so you could really understand certain aspects of the ecosystem there and why it was important. Many natural tours like this have no touch policies, which is completely understandable, but having the opportunity to be able to feel the natural elements is just such a great way to learn. Then it was time to head back to the bus to move on to the second portion of the tour, which was whale watching. We were given a few snacks and some water, and if you have any food allergies or dietary restrictions, make sure you let them know ahead of time so they can have something available for you. When we got to the beach where we'd be boarding the boat, there are restrooms there, and it's highly encouraged that you use them beforehand, as the restroom situation on the boat is interesting. We could see Mendenhall Glacier from here, which was pretty cool, and there is our little boat in the distance. Here's a look at the inside of the boat, and see that tiny little metal door up front? That's the door to the bathroom. There is a step down once you enter, so it's a little bigger on the inside, but I can't imagine it's much bigger, so be aware that's your only option once you're out in the water. This boat was specifically designed for whale watching, with windows on all sides that can be lifted in the event of seeing a whale, and little front and back decks if you want to watch from outside. You're only allowed to use these areas when directed to do so. Otherwise, you stay nice and safe inside with the windows down, which in our case was perfectly fine because it was quite rainy and a bit chilly. If you've never taken a whale watching tour before, basically, you head out into the water and wait until you find a whale. The boats all talk to each other so they can alert others if a whale has been spotted. But once you get in the area, you're kind of just waiting a little while. This isn't really a big deal, but if you're planning on bringing smaller kids, just be aware that there might be times when they get a little bored. A lot of whale watching includes a lot of waiting. In this area, a mama whale and her baby were spotted close to the shoreline, so we were all looking out for them. We did finally spot them, but from a pretty good distance away, and there are many laws in place to keep the boats from getting too close to the whales. You could see them pretty well with binoculars, but not so much with the camera. We heard later from another group that went whale watching that same day that they saw 9 whales that day, so it's really just luck of the draw, and that's how whale watching tours go. We then headed over to another area of the water where we got to see some very silly seals fighting over space on a buoy. They were pretty hilarious to watch, and they were so loud.
Alright, so as we come around here, guys, there's a really good deep field
When we got back, we docked at a different place than where we had boarded and waited for our shuttle back to town. The shuttle offered to take you to town or to take you back to the ship. Everyone on our tour decided to stay in town, so the bus only had one stop to make. We were pretty hungry at this point, so we decided to look for some lunch. We headed over to this blue building, the historic Merchant's Wharf, which had a variety of vendors and food stops. I had seen some pretty good reviews for this place online, so we stopped here for some Russian dumplings. They're a bit like pierogies with the option of beef or cheese filling. They come served in a broth, and both varieties were delicious, and perfect for a cold day. We went inside and did some shopping. We found this little bookshop. Fell in love with Frost and Fur, which designs and handprints all of their own items. We love supporting small businesses when possible, so of course we had to grab a few things here. They also have a website that you can order online from, and I think I've ordered about half of my Christmas gifts from them, so I call that a win. We decided to stop for some coffee and cocoa before heading back outside. Glacier Coffee Co. is right next door, so we grabbed some beverages before moving on. This was actually the best coffee shop we tried on this trip. Then we explored some more of the downtown area and headed over to the visitor center, which was about a 5-minute walk from where we had lunch. The visitor center is a great place to get some valuable information about the area, especially if you're skipping arranged tours and want to do more of a DIY type trip. Everyone working there was super helpful, and they also have maps of some of the more popular hikes in the area, including Mendenhall Glacier, which we would have loved to do, but the weather got pretty bad after that. If you are planning to kind of just wing it when you get to Juneau, definitely recommend stopping here and chatting with some of the employees to get some tips about the area. Another thing we would have loved to do in Juneau was the Gold Belt Tram. This takes you up into the mountains for some amazing views. We were glad we hadn't booked this beforehand though, because with the weather, visibility would have been quite low. It was only getting rainier and colder, so we decided to head back to the ship, which was about a 15-minute walk from the front of town. The Disney Wonder docks at the AJ dock, and there are signs all over to help you find your way back. There's also a shuttle that runs once per hour, but we didn't feel like waiting for that, so we just walked. And then when we got back, they were serving hot cocoa on the ship, which was a very nice touch. We love watching the ship sail away, so we sat on deck 4 as we waved goodbye to Juneau. Then it was time for our nightly show in the Walt Disney Theater. Tonight was Frozen, which is a phenomenal Broadway-style production and one of my favorites on the Disney cruises. After the show, it was time for the Shimmering Seas Soiree to celebrate Disney Cruise Line's 25th anniversary. We have a full video for this on the channel if you want to watch it. Cast members were handing out free drinks, the characters all showed up for a really fun little dance, and then you could meet the characters in their Shimmering Seas outfits after the show. Dinner this night was at Animator's Palate, and we were told to arrive a few minutes early because this was our animation show night. You're given a template and some markers to draw your own character, which will later be a star in the show. Here is a little look at the menu. The menus don't change too often within Animator's Palate. However, when you are in Alaska, there are a few regional specialties that you might not see elsewhere. The show starts by sharing some simple animation that later turns into some scenes from some of the Disney classics. And then at the end of the show, everyone's own characters from the night are integrated into some fun Disney scenes. We look forward to this show whenever we know it'll be on our cruise. It is so fun, and we love seeing everyone's reactions to their artwork being displayed on the screen. And then we ended our night. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.